Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you joining us today on this week's edition of The Spotlight. Now, as you all know, every week we bring in a story that ignites change in Sri Lanka and around the world. Today is no different. But today we are here to talk about something very important, not only to us as Sri Lankans, but to people watching us from around the world as well. And that is the prevention of suicide and the importance of mental health. So today we have with us Mr. Ranil Thilakaratne, the Chief Operations Officer from Lanka Lifeline 1375, to talk to us on something that is very, very important, and this needs urgency and advocacy as well. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start things off, how did you get into this field? Is there a reason behind it? Let's talk about some of the programs and activities you have done for suicide prevention and mental health as well.
Actually, mental health has been an issue in Sri Lanka for a long time, but it hasn't had the attention it needed. And I was also not very aware about suicide prevention and mental health in Sri Lanka, but by chance I had the opportunity of joining an organization called CCC Foundation, which they had a line to support people, which is 1333, which is CCC line. And from there only I started, because one of my friends called Bill Dutram, he asked me whether I can support this line with my experience in working in call center and that kind of field. So once I joined the service, there was a passion that was ignited, and I saw that we are all trying to do something to change our country, to change make an impact in other people's life. And I realized that this was a great way, because there was not much that was happening in this area. So
this was back in...
This was, long time ago. about 12 years, about 10, 12 years ago. And so ever since I've had a passion towards it, and worked with different organizations, still working with different organizations to advocate for suicide prevention. You
also made it to a journey, rather on foot, around Sri Lanka. What was that all about?
So that was Footsteps to Freedom. That was in 2018. Myself, actually the guy behind the idea was Nivendra Uduman. So he, myself, and a lady by the name of Sarah. So we did 1,400 kilometers in 73 days, walking along the coastline of Sri Lanka. The main focus was to create awareness, because we believed at that time the awareness for suicide prevention and mental health was not happening, and people didn't know where to get help, even if they needed or if they wanted to get help. So we went around, educating people. We did over 100 sessions, spoke to a lot of people in different areas. We were invited. Many doors were opened that we couldn't even imagine. And that was one highlight in my career. In
your career. So let's get into some questions regarding suicide prevention and mental health. Since you deal with many people in this area, let's talk about some of the common misconceptions you would have come across when meeting and helping people out.
So suicide is something very unfortunate. It does not differentiate amongst any race, creed, culture, or education. Right? It can happen to anybody. And one misconception is that it can, it won't happen to me, right? But it can. It can happen to anyone, anywhere. Another misconception can be that, if we talk about it, people might think about it. That's not true. If you talk about it, people will be more open to talking about it and getting help. So then, there are different, if you attempted suicide, that means you're weak. That's a misconception, right? And so there are certain misconceptions that were around, but now slowly fading off, because one thing is programs like this where people are getting educated and people are coming to know.
Okay, let's talk about some common signs that you see. There might be a regular pattern that you might see in people if they're struggling with an issue.
Yeah, so this can happen. Sometimes we think, oh no, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor. How can I help someone who's going through this? You don't have to be a counselor or a psychologist. You just need to be available. Need to have the patience to listen to that person. And a good thing you can do is mainly in your circle, in like your family, your school, your work, your friends. You can identify certain telltale signs, and some of those telltale signs are because these people are known to you. You hang around with them. Sometimes you study, you read, you play, you eat together. So you can see changes in their lifestyle. For example, someone who's quite conscious about their diet can give up, and start eating a lot, or can someone who generally enjoys food, right, can suddenly turn away from food. Then changes in sleeping patterns, right? Someone might not fall asleep. Sometimes they might sleep longer. Then the way they dress, right? Generally, I mean, everybody dresses quite smart and quite comfortable. They stop taking care of themselves. Then they start talking about suicide as well. Not saying, okay, I am going to do this, but I'm fed up of life, or small telltale signs. And even on social media they can put a post. These are all invitations they are just throwing out because they don't know how to get help. So if we can pick up on one of those, we can help them, and we'll talk about how we can help them. But those are some of the signs you can look at. Then sometimes they might want to put their daily their work in order, right? If they have pending stuff, or if they might want to settle their loans, or mend friendships, and then sometimes they start giving away stuff. So those are some of the telltale signs you can see. So
at Lanka Lifeline 1375, what is the work that you all do?
So Lanka Lifeline is a helpline which is 24/7 in all 3 languages. Anyone from anywhere in the country can call this number. There are trained crisis supporters that are available to listen to you and support you. So we are trained to support these people. It's in all 3 languages. So our main focus is to be there for them to talk to us.
What are the additional? Do you all offer counseling, rehab?
Okay, so if someone calls us, and most of the time people call because they need someone to listen to. Right, so they call us and they talk about their problems, and then we'll try to find a solution within them, because we need to always remember the expert of the problem is them. Even though we are the counselor, we are the crisis supporter, always you know what is best for your life, right? We say we are all together in the same storm. I beg to differ. I would say we are all in the same storm, but our boats are different. Right? My boat can be smaller, your boat can be bigger, can be stronger. You might have a better circle where you can get support, whereas me, I might not have that same support you have. So they would call us and we would support them, and if they need further help, we would follow up with them. So we would call them back, see how they are, and if they need further help, we will give a referral where they can go and meet a counselor, or depending on what they are going through, right? So they can go and get the help.
So I don't need numbers or anything, but do people call in?
Oh yes.
So that means there is...
Yes.
There are people who want to be heard.
Yes. And imagine someone is calling you and telling their intimate, most secret details to you when they don't even know you. I mean, they don't know who you are. They are not a relation.
You're someone on the other side of the line.
I mean, they don't know whether you're white, black or purple. They just talk and they share the intimate story. Because I think that is because as a society, we have failed in that area.
That's true. So now, in a Sri Lankan context, if someone is wanting to, start therapy, when you meet people, what is the reception like? Are their parents, family, are they supportive of this idea?
Actually, we have come a long way. In some time back, talking about mental health would be like, they are mad. There'll
Exactly.
be a huge stigma attached to it. If you talk about NIMH, which is doing a massive service to society today, we used to call it Angoda or Pisankotua,
Yeah.
right? It was always stigmatized, but you know the service they do is so great. So I would say that the tide has changed a bit, where there are people coming now for counseling. There are people, even parents, even husbands, wives, even friends, you know, coming and saying, look, I have a friend who is willing to come, you know, can you help? Okay, or of course they might prefer, can I talk to a lady, can I talk to a gent? That is there, that is understandable.
Yeah.
But before there was a huge stigma where nobody would like to talk to. But today parents need to understand, if their children need help, they need to. It's not a weakness. Having a mental issue, having stress, having anxiety is not a weakness. It's just like, you know, you have a headache, you'll take a Panadol. If you have something worse, you go and see a doctor. Same way, if you're going to look after our physical self, why not our mental self as well? So we can get help.
Now that we spoke about children as well, they don't really know what the issue is. So what can you tell parents, you know, if they see a change in their child, how do you advise the parent to take that matter forward?
I think a parent needs to be a little open, not think that, especially amongst teenagers, especially if there are children who are hyperactive, right? Some people think that they are possessed. I mean, we had cases like that reported where children who are hyperactive were taken to Kattandiyas, and they were, you know, we lost some of those children, unfortunately, right? But parents need to get the correct help. Go and talk to a government registered doctor, right, and tell them that this is what is happening. Maybe you won't understand what is happening, so get help. Maybe you don't need to shout at the child, you know, scold the child or question the child. Just understand the child, ask them how they feel, and get help, right? You can call these lines. There are enough of lines. I'm sure you'll share the helplines
Yes.
later on, or they can call 1375, 1333, right, and get help, and then they will refer you to someone, right? So don't think that, oh no, you know, my child is mad or my child is losing it. No, it's not that. As soon as you identify a change in them, get help and it can be solved.
That's right, because parents also need to be quite open as well to talk about issues. We see so many, you know, news articles and people reporting where, you know, children, you know, especially in the youth, you know, they have relationship issues or they have stress from school, anxiety, and they're not sure how to
Yes.
talk to their parent about it, and they think the only solution is, you know,
Scold,
take that,
yeah.
exactly, and to take the decision of suicide. So parents have to be open as well to talk
Yes.
about issues.
Yes, because we need to understand that times have changed drastically.
Exactly.
From the time I went to school and the time my son now is going to school is totally different. We would go to school, do sports, get, you know, involved in extracurricular activities, but today the competition is more. And you know, so there's a lot of stress amongst the children. I mean, sometimes I see children at 6 o'clock in the morning going to school, and after office or after a function when I'm going home at about 8, 9, children at classes, children on the road with their uniforms going home. So, you know, it's
They need to have that childhood.
yeah, they need to have that childhood.
Okay, so now let's talk about the importance of fostering or creating an environment that is safe for people. And it's important that we as a community understand people's issues. We have to be more open. So let's talk about the importance of creating a safe environment for people.
That's very important, Manila. That is very important. I think psychological safety is something that is important, not in society, at your home, in your offices, in school. Psychological safety meaning a person should be able to come and talk about their feelings without being judged. You know, generally, if I go and say, you know, especially as a male, if I say, look, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling lonely, they would say, hey, come on, man up.
Man up.
Right? Or what is this? You're acting like a girl, you know?
Yeah.
Or even our children, when our boys if our boys fall and they cry, we say, why are you crying like a girl? But
Yeah.
we need to allow them to show their emotions. We need to create an environment where people can talk. Like I said earlier, we don't have to be counselors or psychologists. We just have to be able to listen for that moment, right? It's like first aid. Okay, just be there for that moment. If someone comes and says, look, I'm going through a problem, don't say, it's okay, man, it's going to get better, man, it's, things are like that.
Things will pass.
Yeah, that happened to me, it will pass, right? But just listen to them. Just listen to them, and with their permission, get help.
So are there any specific risk factors that increase the likelihood of suicide in your experience?
Okay, so suicide, unfortunately, is if you take an iceberg, right, about 70% of the iceberg is underwater. It's about 30% that we see on top. So I think last year there was about 3,600 suicides in Sri Lanka, unfortunately. So that's the number we see. But the balance that is underwater, that we don't see, is where we need to cater. There's anxiety, there's depression, there's bullying, financial issues, relationship issues, addiction to drugs and alcohol, to porn, gaming, social media. So there's a lot of things happening underneath. So when all this is pressurized, only the result is suicide. So there are a lot of factors. There are factors like, like I said, bullying is one factor. Right, financial issues, relationship issues, not being there to listen to, right, not being there to be heard. Where when I come and say, look, I need to talk, just respect that person and listen to them, right? And you don't need to share your story. Just let them tell their story. And if you don't know what to say, just get help.
What about stigma? If you, let's say, I want to go for therapy. Back in the day, I'm not sure how it is now, but I think there's a better acceptance to it as well. Back in the day, if you said you're going in for therapy, you'll be considered a mad person.
Yes, definitely.
So stigma, do you think, is it still what it used to be?
I think it's improved. Yeah, I think it's better now. There's a lot of, because again, with activities and programs like this, with social media campaigns, then like the walk we did, then CCC line, they do a bike ride every year around the country, 1,333 kilometers, creating awareness about suicide. So things like that have come. Like for example, when leprosy was there, right, people were shunned out of the village. But later on, people educated, there was medicine, so now people are living with us. When HIV was first found, we didn't want to eat in the same plate. But today we have people living with us who are in our circle. When COVID came, right, we got people to lock their houses and stay, and I mean, people went through a very, very hard time.
I think the cases would have increased during that time because you're alone at home.
So actually during that time, strangely, suicides went down.
Really?
Yeah, because you're at home, no? Because you are now with your family. So whether you like it or not,
they were
there. So they would either listen to you or they were still there. But domestic violence went up.
Yes, there was
domestic violence went up. But now people understand what COVID is. So same way, mental health. Now people are talking about it, and now the stigma has really subsided.
So let's talk about resources that are available for people who need help and who want to seek help as well.
So there, fortunately, Sri Lanka has come a long way. In '96, when we won the World Cup, right? Sri Lanka was also number one in suicide. There were 54 male suicides per day.
Sri Lanka was in the statistics.
Yes, number one in the world. And so the government at that time took drastic action. They took drastic changes where pesticides were, the strength of the pesticides were brought down. They, different NGOs introduced safe boxes to the farmers' houses where they used to put all the pesticides in one box and close it, and there were two keys. So the husband and wife both had keys, so if you want to open it, both had to agree and open it.
Right.
So there were a lot of things that happened, and so because of those drastic changes, came down. Now it's about 10 to 12 per day, suicides per day. So there is a lot of help. One plus point we have is the 1990 ambulance service. They are doing amazing work. I mean, they are spontaneous. They go before, again, because of the stigma of suicide. When you take a patient who has attempted suicide, they would just put them to a corner and not attend to, because this person attempted suicide, right? He wanted to end his life, so why should we waste our resources? That was the thinking. But now, again, because of education, because of talking, that has improved, where people, you know, the nurses, the doctors are really fighting for even that person's life, right? Not just putting them to a side. Then services have increased, right? You have a lot of services. In the beginning, it was just Sumitro, right? And NIMH, but now you have different organizations. Then every district secretariat has a counselor, right? Every general hospital has a counselor. You can get help in all over the country. So it's improving. It's improving. And even if we do a campaign, if we write to either the police or to the local government or someone and say, look, we want to do a poster campaign, they always agree. They'll always say, yes, please go ahead and do it. So it's there is a lot of help and there's a lot of change.
All right, welcome back to the show, and today we are talking about the prevention of suicide and the importance of mental health and mental care as well. So getting back into the questions that I have for you today, let's talk about workplaces, offices, institutes, organizations. How can, institutes and, offices, how can they sort of start prioritizing mental health as well for their employees in the building?
Actually, a lot of organizations have already started.
Which is a good thing.
Yes, which is a really great thing. The HR companies, I mean, we do a lot of programs to officers, especially in the government sector, in the BOI areas and all that, we do a lot of programs. And if any organization would like to do some programs, we are willing to come and do some sessions with them. They can again contact us through 1375 and ask to talk to a manager there. Also, there are other organizations who does this. Like I know CCC, they have a beautiful program called Let's Talk, which they again go and do in schools and in organizations, in companies. So we can even channel you to one of them. There are different counselors, there are different trainers, life coaches, who we would recommend that people would get help from. So again, it's very important to create a psychologically safe environment where people will not be judged if they come and talk to you, not just regarding their mental health, because the mental health or the anxiety or the depression will come later. It first can be about their salary or a problem in their home, or their immediate work environment, or their boss or supervisor. So if someone comes and talks, they need to feel welcome, they need to feel heard, and that would be a great step. So these trainings, what we do are how to handle these, how to have a psychologically safe environment. So that's important. A lot of organizations are doing it, so that's a good improvement.
So just running through a few statistics, in 2023 up until July, the total rate of suicides were 1,697, and out of this, the male statistics is at 1,447, female rate is 250. We see the level of male suicide is very high in Sri Lanka. Why do you think that is?
Like I said, we are a male-dominant society, and even from our small days, men are supposed to be macho. Men are supposed to be strong, not show their feelings, not cry. So even if we get together as friends and if we share, then people will think you're weak. But we need to encourage men to come forward. And the other side of those statistics are, if you look at any of the call centers, any of the support lines, you'll see that most of the calls are from ladies, from females.
Is that so?
Yes. I would go to the extent of saying even 80% of the calls will be from females, because ladies will call. They'll talk about their problem.
Right.
Right? Yeah. And get help. But whereas men don't even want to call a confidential hotline because, thinking that they'll be judged. So I think a lot of people are talking about it. There are a lot of ambassadors who are talking about it, where men need to talk. It's not weak to talk about your problems. You can talk to someone you trust, and if you can't, that's fine. You can talk to one of these support lines, which is confidential anyway, right? They don't take your personal information. Some of these lines, they don't even take your numbers. They don't even ask your name. So even 1375 is 100% confidential, right? We don't take your name or number or anything. Only if later on, if you want us to follow up, yes, then we will.
Then there is.
But otherwise, yeah. So you can talk to these support lines. It's available 24/7. So you need to get help.
As you said, the male population, they're not quite open to, talking and opening up. So if we know someone, if we see a pattern, a change in that pattern, how do we approach them? How do we break that shell open? How do we get someone to start speaking?
That's a good question. I think anywhere, not just male, even in anyone. If you see anyone who's going through a problem, it's always good to, so there are some physical things you need to do. If they're seated, you need to sit down. Right? Don't stand and talk to them. Sit down on the same level. Eye level. Okay. Maybe lean forward, right, to show that you're
actively listening.
Maybe you can avoid touch, right? If you have to touch, maybe the knee, right? But and just tell them, hey, I see a difference in you, right? You and I are colleagues, or you're my friend, or you're my brother, right? I see you're different from for a couple of days. What's bugging you? Are you okay? Can we talk about it? And maybe the first time they say, no, I'm fine, no, nothing wrong and all. But at least in the back of their mind, they'll realize that you noticed something.
You have noticed a change.
And that there is someone who is willing to listen to them. So that can make a world of a difference. Maybe later on, they might come to you and say, hey, you asked me, I didn't tell you at that time, but I am going through a problem, right? Or maybe they don't come at all, and maybe the second time, after about a day, you can go again and say, look, I'm here for you, right? But don't say, tell me, I can see something.
Yeah.
Not like that. Be gentle, right? And say, all right, again, don't be scared that, oh no, I don't know, this person is opening up, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just be there and listen to them. And encourage that person to get help, right? Tell them, look, if you need help, I am there for you. I will come with you, right? Let's get help. Let's talk to someone who can help us. And ask them who they would like to talk to. Because sometimes the problem might be with their boss, with their husband or wife, or with their father or mother. So we don't know. So ask them who we should talk to. We can't suggest. If I'm having a problem with my father, if you tell me, Ranil, can we go and talk to your father, then it's not going to help. Yeah. So you suggest, can we get help? So always respect them, listen to them, right? And support them.
Let's talk about immediate signs of danger. How would you react, to someone? What's the first thing you would do?
Immediate signs of danger, generally, mainly most of the time, if someone is going to take their own life, they will, if they have come to that stage, they will do it very privately, right? But if you realize that something is happening, when you start talking to them, so this is how you can do it. When you start talking to them, and when they say, if they say, yes, I'm going through a problem, I need, and then you talk to them, say, okay, tell me what's going on, how we can help, and start talking to them. And you can ask them, look, have you decided to do anything to yourself? Are you thinking of, doing something to yourself?
So being upright.
Yeah, because if you ask the question directly, and if you say, look, are you feeling suicidal? That won't trigger, but that will trigger a direct answer, right?
True.
That will trigger direct. Then he'll say, no. No, I'm not thinking of that. I'm just going through a bad time. Then fine, right? But he says yes, right? you're also going to get scared. That's obviously going to happen, right?
You'll be overwhelmed.
Yeah, you'll be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But then what you can do is appreciate that person, saying, you're so brave for telling me this, and thank you for trusting me with this secret. I really respect you, and I mean, you're an amazing person to tell me. I'm going through all this. You're telling me that you want to end your life, and you're sharing that with me. Thank you. Let's help each other. Let me help you, right? And from there you can ask, do you have a plan? Have you made any plans? Have you got any methods? And then you can see whether, if they say, yes, I have a plan, yes, I have a date, yes, I have this, then you can see how eminent it is.
It is.
If they say, no, I'm just thinking of it, then,
it's in the initial.
Yeah. So if it's, and always don't say, I will not tell anyone.
Okay.
Right? Because you can say this, you can say, okay, what we discuss is amongst us, but if we need help, with your permission, let's talk to someone.
Let's talk to someone.
Right? Because if it's a suicide case, and if they say, and you don't know what to do, you will have to get help. Right? But if you say, no, I'm not going to tell anyone, it's 100% confidential, all that, then you are breaking a promise. So you tell them, look, yes, it's confidential, but if we need to get help, let's get help together. Yeah.
So what do you think, are there any legislative or policy changes that you believe in that could bring in improvement in this area?
Actually, a lot have been done. Like what I said, the government hospitals being more open to support patients. The strength of pesticides being dropped, right, which is
Currently.
not lethal. Yeah. Then before, suicide was a criminal act, right? So now it's not.
Okay.
Right now it's not, but I think it needs to be updated in the police sites and all that. I think that's also been done. But I think a little more support towards the mental health directorate, because I think there are only about 8 or 9 staff to manage whole of Sri Lanka. Yeah, so maybe strengthen that arm a little more.
What does the directorate do?
So they are supposed to do, create awareness, do programs, awareness programs, trainings, stuff like that. So maybe strengthen their hands a little more. And I know a lot of channels have taken the challenge up of, not showing suicide cases, even in songs and dramas and all that. They have now stopped that, even reporting about it. Maybe if they can, just put helplines in case they are reporting an accident or a death or a murder. If you can put helplines saying, in case you're feeling triggered, please call these numbers. Because I remember it happened some time back, but it went off again. So maybe that can be done. And yeah.
A lot of media organizations, tend to sensationalize things like this. So it's important that they don't, because it's a person's life at the end of the day. Let's get into social media. Has it been a good thing, or has it been a bad thing, or has it been a little bit of both?
One thing we need to understand is social media is here, and it's a giant. We can't fight social media, whether it's good or bad. It's here to stay, right? And it's going to get bigger.
So might as well use it positively.
Yes, I mean, we are using it positively. We are creating awareness. We are, doing all that. Social media is a key factor in mental health and in suicide in a negative way, because sometimes we get bullied on social media.
Cyber harassment.
Yes, and I mean, cybersecurity. Sri Lanka, it's crazy. They can't even handle the complaints that are coming. So bullying happens. Then we share stuff, and we are like anxiously waiting to see whether it was shared again, or how many people liked it, how many people commented on it. So things like that. So we need to realize that our life is done on more important things. And yes, you need to have social media. I'm not saying don't have social media, but Don't let social media rule.
over.
Yeah, rule your life.
Is it true that people say when people see things regarding suicide and all of that on social media or platforms that it triggers the person in doing so?
Okay, so there is something called copycat suicide. So if you see a method or a story of someone who had ended their life, taken their life by suicide, or if it's in a song. Now I've seen some songs in the past, but now it doesn't happen. Where there's a affair, they break off, and either the girl or the boy ends their life. Things like that. If it's shown, yes, 100% it will trigger.
Okay. So let's talk about someone who might be wanting to reach out for help, but this person does not have the funds to do so. Is there still help available?
Oh yes, definitely. NIMH does everything free of charge, right? Then even the helpline, CCC, the 1333 is the only toll-free service in Sri Lanka. Then you get NIMH number, which is 1926, right? Then of course our number, which is 1375, right? So the services are free, but only 1333 is toll-free. So those services are there. Then even Sumitro, if it's a walk-in, they help you free of charge. Then, like I said, all the general hospitals have a counseling arm that is done free of charge.
Okay, let's talk about the importance of, in school, sometimes teachers don't really pay much attention to a child going through an issue. Sometimes there might be a child who is reacting, who is very hyperactive in class, and the teacher might think this child is a problematic child, but might not understand that there's an underlying issue. So maybe teachers and the education sector should also start promoting, and advocating and probably include it in syllabuses.
Oh yes.
Is there any part in education in Sri Lanka where they've included things regarded to mental health?
So actually, like I said, CCC, they have a program called Let's Talk, and they were willing to introduce this to the schools. They ran it in a couple of schools, and free of charge, right? So if the education ministry can take that on board, because there is no rocket science there. It's something that the teachers are already doing. What do teachers do? They take care of children. But sometimes, unfortunately, when a child is acting differently, even the teacher doesn't know how to handle it. It's not the teacher's fault, right? Teacher will take care of that child as best to her knowledge. So what a program like this, by educating them more, it will just empower them to do a better service. So there are programs which can help children. And yes, teachers already are doing an amazing job, but just imagine with this kind of support, how much more they can do.
Let's talk about how would you advise someone to take care of his or her own personal mental health?
Okay.
How would you advise that?
So there are a lot of self-care methods on the internet today, right? Breathing techniques, drinking a lot of water, right? Water is amazing, right?
True.
Right? It helps you a lot, keeping you not only just keeping you hydrated, but it helps you.
It flushes out.
It flushes out, right? Also, your lifestyle, you need to be careful, right? You need to get your sleep. You need to, your food, right? Then activity, nature, right? Enjoy nature, right? If you're a person who loves pets, have a pet, right? If you can't have a pet, have a fish tank. Not these expensive ones, a small fish tank. Spend time with your family. So stuff like that.
Those are healthy coping mechanisms.
Yes.
Well, we are on the final lap of the show this Monday evening, and we are talking about something that is very important to everyone watching us today. Let's talk, since we have a few more minutes left on the show, let's talk a little bit about, toxic positivity. Someone might be going through a problem, and we were talking about it a little while ago. they say, it's okay, you know, I've had bigger problems than this. There are bigger issues in the world to worry about. How would you advise someone who talks like that?
So one of the main issues today is because we don't have people to listen to, right? If I had a problem, if I went to someone, I won't have anyone to listen to, right? They'll always try to advise, okay? Like I said earlier, the expert in their life is me. I am the expert in my life, right? You're the expert in your life. You know your strengths, you know your family, you know your friends, you know whom you can get help from. Me telling you will not help because I don't know your background or your full story. There are things I don't know about you. Same way, me advising someone, then I am taking responsibility for their life because they are doing what I am telling them to do. So best thing is to ask them as they start talking, listen to them and ask them questions. What do you think will happen if you do this? What do you think will happen if you do that? They might come up with a solution. It's always good for them to come up with a solution. When they come up with a solution, and if you think that this might not be the best solution, then you can question that solution. So, what do you think will happen if you do this now? Right? For example, if you are going through a financial issue and you want to take borrow money, for this polia, they say, right, on higher interest, that's getting into more problems. So if they say, look, I have a person who will lend me money on interest, then you can ask, okay, so if you take it on interest, how much of interest do you pay? Right? Then by paying that interest, are you coming out of the problem or are you getting into more debt? Maybe you're solving one problem, but to solve this problem, how are you going to do it? Like that, you can question, not say, that's a crazy idea, no man.
Yeah, you
that's
get
a foolish
them thinking.
idea. Yeah, you don't put their thoughts down. Like I said earlier, you respect them, you listen to them, right? And you don't share your stories because he's coming to you not to listen to your story, but to share his story or her story, right? So don't share your stories. Your experience is not valid, right? That's something we train our crisis supporters. Is don't share your story. Always listen to their story. Always admire them, appreciate what they are telling you, and uplift them, encourage them to talk. Right? And if we do that, we can make a huge difference. It's a little difficult because we are used to talking.
Yeah.
We're used to being told, right? At home, at office, we are used to being told.
Yeah.
Right? But now we need to change it a little bit.
Just want to throw in a quick question before I head into my final question. Is there specific training that people working in this area need, or there any requirements that they have?
To do what I just told you to do, you don't need training.
Okay.
Right? You can just be a good listener.
Right.
Right? Just be a good listener, and then from there, okay, so basically you are a firefighter, you are a paramedic, you are giving first aid. So from the location, from this location until that person gets professional help, you are supporting them.
Okay.
Right? Then of course, yes, you have to get your counseling diploma, your degree, your masters, and psychology, stuff. You have to educate yourself to do more. But just to be there and help, there are a lot of very good programs. There's a program called Assist, right, and Safe Talk, right. So that training was done in Sri Lanka some time back. We're trying to do it again, so we'll see how it happens. So there are programs where the layman can do and equip themselves.
All right. So let's hear your message to anyone watching us today. What is something you have to tell? It could be an opinion, your talk on life, the value of life, the importance of life, anything you want to tell someone watching us today.
Yeah, so number one, thank you for the opportunity, because I think programs like this go a long way. This is not, we never know how this program will affect. Even if it affects one person, it has saved one person, right? What I would say is, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling lonely, there is help, right? I'm sure the support numbers will be shown. The first one that comes into my mind is 1375. You can call them. It's available in all 3 languages. It's confidential and they are there to support you. But if you're feeling down and if you're feeling that it's hopeless, give life one more chance, right? Because if you pass that line today, you will see how things get better, right? I went through the same experience, right? I gave up on life. I wanted to end my life, but for a miracle, I'm here today, right? And if my life ended on that day about 30 years ago, I wouldn't have been here today, right? So I'm here today, having a good life, right? Because I just gave one more chance. And have I felt bad after that? Yes. Have we gone through bad situations in life? Yes. It's there. That's what makes life enjoyable. But give life a chance and get help. Don't be afraid.
Beautifully said. So I want to thank you for joining us today. And topics like these need importance in society. It's not topics that should be shunned away. It should be addressed, because a life could be changed and a life could be saved as well. So thank you for joining us today. Today we were in conversation with Mr. Ranil Thilakaratne, Chief Operations Officer of Lanka Lifeline 1375. If you want to get in contact, those are the numbers. 1375 are the numbers. And that's what I have to say. So thank you once again for being with us on this week's edition of the Spotlight, and we want to wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right, and that brings us to the end of yet another edition of the Spotlight this Monday. Join me again next Monday evening, same time, same place, for a story that will ignite change. Until we meet again, stay safe and have a pleasant night.